Brian, we're good here whenever you want to start going.
Ready to get going?
You can kick her off if you want.
Okay. All right, everybody. Welcome back. Week 14, our final episode of our HEO Development Webinar Series, and we are absolutely thrilled tonight to have with us head coach of our very own Ottawa Senators, Mr. DJ Smith. If there was ever a way to go out with a bang, this is how we're going to do it. We're bringing in the man himself from the Senators. DJ is going to talk to us a little bit about some seasonal planning and development issues and concepts. So with no further ado, DJ, thank you very much for taking your time tonight. I'll turn it all over to you.
No problem at all. Glad I could help out here. My son was lucky enough last year to be a part of it in Ottawa. Had a great experience. Sean Donovan did a great job, and he ended up being a draft pick of the London Knights in the second round. So the least I can do is give back. What I would like to do here, and I have our head video coach, Mike King, on with me, who's going to run the slides. So what I would like to do here is just start off, if you're, whatever age you're coaching, I think, Kinger, if you can go to the second slide there, the biggest thing is you have to make a decision as to what kind of coach you are and who you are. So by who are you, I mean, what do you want people to say about you and your team? And that it'll change over time to some degree, but what I mean by that is, are you somebody that's gonna want to score a zillion goals? Are you a defensive guy? Are you a hard work comes first guy? Are you, or girl? What is it that you decide? So, for example, I'm all about team first, work ethic, and culture, defense. And I think that's followed me everywhere I've gone, from junior hockey. I was there 13 years, to Oshawa, to now to Toronto, and then now Ottawa. So you have to decide for yourself what that is. I don't think you can be everything, because your players need to know exactly what that is, that you are all about. And then they become what you want them to be. And you're essentially the captain and running the ship. And you have to tell them and remind them regularly what we are. And a good coach gets his team to play exactly the way that he expects them to play. And people know by watching you that that's, say, DJ Smith's team or whoever it may be. Now, what are your beliefs? So the second part of that in what are my beliefs, for my beliefs is you win with defense. So you have to decide for yourself, what are your beliefs? Are you going to run and gun, try and win 7-6? Are you going to roll the bench? Are you going to load up power plays? What are you going to do? And every age makes a difference. But again, that goes into a little bit into who you are. But your players, again, need to know this. And then communication. You have to communicate it right from the get-go, what it is you want from them. So many coaches, and I've had good ones and I've had bad ones, live in the gray. And what I mean by gray is you do not communicate with your players enough on a daily basis to tell them exactly what it is you want from them. And 90% or 95% of players will do exactly what you're asking them to do. You do have that 5% they're going to do their own thing regardless, and we'll talk about that later. But if you do not communicate exactly what it is you want, it's hard for them to understand. So it has to be black and white, and you can't be clear enough. And again, that communication has to happen, not right from the get-go, but on a daily basis. And it's an ongoing thing. And you have to allow them to communicate back with you. So sometimes it's a moving parts. And I believe the game has changed. When I was a player, you could yell at me and I would play harder. That's not the case today. You have to find a way to get to your players. But again, it's just different things you may have to do for communication. But if you are not speaking them on a daily basis, don't expect them to do exactly what you want. Therefore, you will not get, going up to my number one point is, who are you? You are not going to get your team to play the way you want if you aren't communicating daily. So if you can go to the next slide. So so I got built to fit you and your beliefs. So now, if you are a guy like myself that likes defense, box outs, tough hockey, energy, but your team is not built as such, you're very small, you're, highly skilled, but not a competitive team, then you're going to have a real tough time, getting the results that you want from your team and to play the way you want them to play. So a little bit you need to know your personnel, and you would then build your team around possibly to fit you. But if you don't have those pieces, you may have to adjust, and we'll talk later on about adaptability. But so this kind of all goes in, and maybe even backwards here, is that you need to know what your team is, and then from there you tell them the way you want them to play. Because in saying that, if I'm asking a group of 5'7", 160-pound players to play rough and tumble, finish your checks, we're going to grind you out like the St. Louis Blues, but I have a bunch of highly skilled, points and, so Johnny Goodrows and these guys, you're not going to get the team to play like that. Then you're going to have chaos. So now my next point is I go Sheldon Keefe versus John Tortorella. And the reason I did this is there's a lot of people certainly watching that series. And those are two clear coaches that are from different spectrums here. So Sheldon Keefe, I roomed with in the minors in Hershey, was the kind of player that John Tortorella likes, per se. He did play games for him, didn't play a lot, but now as a coach, Sheldon is pure puck possession. It's not that they don't want to play defense. It's they believe the best defense is to have the puck the entire game. And he's had very good success in junior. He's had very good success in the American Hockey League in a puck possession style. He does not want to give the puck away ever. And you can see that when you watch the Toronto Maple Leafs. They'll kick it back. They'll build it. So John Tortorella, on the other hand, is going to put the puck into good spots, spaces, very little video. He's all about energy, team first, do it right, finish your checks. Sometimes we call it punting. You have to punt, change, get above the other team. We have two different contrasts. Now, Toronto Maple Leafs on paper have more talent, more skill. The series is 1-1 after 2. Columbus played their game to perfection in game 1, and it frustrated Toronto. Toronto played their game to perfection in game 2, and they had the puck the entire game. So as much as Toronto didn't give anything up, they really didn't have to defend. They had the puck the entire night, and their possession numbers would show that. So I guess the point I bring these two people up is that is a clear choice by Sheldon as to the way his teams are going to play, and that's a clear choice by John Tortorella on the way his teams play. So everywhere John goes, his teams play that way. When you go to play John's team, they're going to smack you. They're going to be physical. They're going to be above you. They're not going to give you anything. They're going to keep 5 guys real tight. When you go play Sheldon's team, you're probably not going to have the puck as much. They're not a very physical brand, but they're highly skilled. They make plays. And if you're not ready, both of those systems are very dangerous. So I hope that it paints kind of the picture as to when I say, who are you and what your beliefs in, those are two clear-cut cases. And if you're a coach and your players don't know who you are and they don't know what your beliefs are, it's going to be hard for your team to play a certain brand. You have to make a decision as to what it is. You cannot be good at everything. And I think that's a mistake people make, is you just think you can go out there and we're going to be great at everything. That's not probably going to happen. So you've got to make a decision. What are the points you're going to hammer home? And then you master those and get good at the ones you're not good at. So if you can go to the next slide here. So that takes me now to training camp. So if you've got the team that you want, if you, in my situation, you work with your general manager and scouts and all the management to build that team. Now, in your case of minor hockey, you guys have your tryouts and you're picking those teams. Your training camp has to now be designed around exactly what you want from them. And by that, I mean, your very first message has to be, this is what we're about. And if you're at a young age, it's about fun, and it should be 1,000,000% about fun. So that message has to be right from the get-go. We're not going to put up with selfish hockey. We're not going to put up with long shifts. We're not going to put up with pouting. We're not going to put up with bad body language. Now, if you are a coach that's in a more competitive situation where maybe you're into the midget, where it's starting to get a little more competitive, or junior, your message then becomes, we are going to be very competitive every night because we're not going to give up odd man rushes. We're going to learn to defend in the D zone. We're going to be the best penalty killing team in the league. Whatever that may be, we're going to be the best forward checking team. You're going to decide for yourself, and that will be the very first few things you're going to work on in training camp. Now, and that's why I say for the younger groups, it has to be about fun. So you wouldn't have so much as a training camp. You'd have your tryouts, but that would be your first few practices, and I would make it fun. I wouldn't make it terribly grinding. I'd make it hard for them, but hard and fun. So the kids are coming back and they're saying to their mom and dad, hey, it's fun to go to the arena. This is going to be the funnest year I've ever played. Whereas, when you're in that midget, bantam, midget, junior, those kids need to know right away that you're not screwing around. You're the boss, and you're going to give them some discipline, and you're going to give them some structure right away. And next goes into my next point is culture. So the culture in which you allow, or you, especially young people, you're essentially the captain of the team. You create the culture. There's going to be no bullying. There's going to be no this, no that. There's going to be no cheating. That essentially has to be your very first few things you do have to be that. And they need to know that you're the boss, you're fair, but this is what we stand for and don't stand for. And I think sometimes there's too many messages right away. The speeches are too long. Just to be clear, when I was in Toronto, Mike Babcock, our meetings were not allowed to be longer than 4 minutes. And I didn't understand at first, but I do now. The players don't have it in them to listen to much longer. So the younger the player, the less time they're actually listening. So if you've got 8, 9, and 10-year-olds, I wouldn't sit up there and make yourself feel good and rant and rave for 20 minutes. The message has probably got to be about a minute long. And they'll stick to 1 or 2 words. But if you're going to sit up there for 15 minutes, you're not going to get much out of it. You're going to make yourself feel good, but the kids are going to leave there and they're not going to know what your message is. And it moves me into my next thing is your practice plans. So whatever it is that you're deciding as a coach that is you, is it defense first, is it offense? That has to be your staple drills. These are drills that you would do if you practice twice a week. You're doing them in every practice. And you may have 2 or 3 of them that you give them names so the players know them. And those are the things you believe in. So for me, I call a defensive drill Barry Smith. It's about boxing out, facing the puck. Everywhere I've gone, I've brought Barry Smith drill with me. When I say it, the players know exactly what it is. It's a highly competitive drill about D-zone coverage, boxing out. And I did it all the way through junior. My team's been very successful defensively. And I expect that in Ottawa, we will do the same shortly. So that's one drill. And I won't get into a bunch of drills, but I do another drill called the Huntsy forecheck after Dale Hunter. I want my team to be tenacious in forecheck. So that drill, now we practice a little more and we're on the ice a little more. Again, for a young age, if you're practicing twice a week, that drill should be at every practice. So, and a lot of times you guys are practicing for an hour and a half, which is a really long time for young kids. So it's easy to incorporate probably 2 or 3 of your staple drills. And whenever you lose kind of sight of the way your team's playing, you go back to those. Those are your staple drills. You get your team back on track. And, you can put a bunch of other drills in for skill and do a bunch of other things, but you're going to need a couple of those staple drills. Now, this doesn't really apply for younger kids, the special teams, but I would say anyone probably Pee-wee Bantam, Pee-wee Major and up, special teams is a major part of the game. And I really like, I got to say, Sean Donovan with Colton, my son, his team, they had 9 forwards in their 60 in that midget league last year. And he rolled them right until probably 5 games to go. And at first I thought, you know what, just put the best players out there and whatever. But at 55-minute games, it was the absolute best thing that he could have done. Everyone got better. Everyone got to touch the puck. Everyone at some point, was important. And that happens so much in minor hockey is as a coach, you think maybe who the best players are when what if you're wrong? And, you're playing the same kids all year long. So I would roll them over and quick changes, let everyone. And let's see at the end of the year if your ninth forward now doesn't become your fourth forward and vice versa. Everyone needs the opportunity to grow and play. Now, I realize as you get older, it's more competitive. You're expected to win a little more. But I can't say enough that I really, I think that, the Canada Lasers were expected to be competitive, and they have, an owner and they have all that. But I can say, our team ended up winning the league, and I can say their team was much closer. There was no bickering in the stands from the parents. It really was enjoyable. Coming from Windsor and Southern Ontario here, there's a lot of politics in minor hockey, and I think a lot of that comes from special teams and who's on them and who's not. Someone has pegged your son or daughter as a penalty killer at the age of 9, and that's just not right. That's the players change day to day, so you have to be allowed to play in all situations. Now, in my situation, the Ottawa Senators, we didn't practice special teams as much last year because I was, really banging on our culture of who we were, and I believe we've done that. This year, we will practice special teams almost every practice. Now I go on to player evaluations, and I'll allow you to, and there'll be some question and answer here at the end, and I want to leave plenty of time because we're covering a lot of topics. But player evaluation, I think your entire staff has to be in on it. I'm a big believer of ratings. So after a game, your staff does your ratings, 1 to 5. 5 being an unbelievable game, 1 being a really bad game. And you should meet with your players. At our level, we'd meet with our players probably every 8 to 10 games because they go by so quick. In junior, we would meet every 6 games. Now, in a situation like yours, I'd probably meet once a month. And you put all their ratings together. You don't need to let everyone see it, but the coaching staff sees it. So what happens is you get 4 or 5 people giving their ratings, and because some people have their favorites and some people, seem to have certain players that they're not big fans of. So it evens itself out, and it also holds you accountable. If you're always finding the same player low, but everyone else has them high, it'll hold you as a coach accountable. And then when you have your player evaluation, you can go over that with the player. Maybe not so much the younger kids, but the older kids, and say, this is why we have you at this. We have you as an average 3.5 out of 5. Hey, you're doing really well. We have an average of 4 out of 5. Hey, you've been our best player. We have you at 2 out of 5 because you don't work hard enough, or you're not working hard enough. And it's not just me, it's 5 of us coaches. I need more from you. That is to me black and white coaching. It's not gray. You're telling them exactly what you want. You're not yelling and screaming. You're giving them a proper player evaluation, and positive feedback is imperative at that age. Go to the next slide, Karen. So now this checklist that I have, and I'll allow, if people want to print this out, you guys can have the entire presentation. That's fine with me. Now, this checklist that I have here is more for me at the NHL or junior level. As I rewatch the game and I mark everything, what are the areas of strength and weaknesses? And then, so if we just lost a game, I need to know why we lost. So not so much for the younger groups again, because to me, that's more skill development and it's how much ice time and fun they can have. But as you get older, and if you want to get into competitive coaching, and that's where I'm talking more about coaching in this situation, here's my checklist. Was our D-zone coverage good? Was our neutral zone good? Was our faceoffs good? Our forecheck, our breakouts, O-zone plays, special teams, and did we give up too many odd man rushes? I can tell you right now, if you give up more than 3 or 4 odd man rushes in the National Hockey League, you're going to lose. Now, if I go through this and, I've got 5 bad D-zone coverage clips. I've got 3 forechecks where our guys aren't in the right spot. Our faceoffs, we weren't dialed in. you're going to lose the game. So usually what happens is one or two of these things will be out of whack. And what happens that next practice, you've got your staples, and then you will cover a drill that will fix what happened last game, because you need to tell your players, especially at an older age, why they lost the game. They need to know that you know exactly why they lost, and if we fix this, we can get back winning and playing well. So you would throw a couple drills in to really hammer down what it is you were not good at. So if it was breakouts, I would start with a breakout drill. I might do 2 or 3 different breakout drills. So, but the problem happens in the NHL, it's like fixing a dam. Unless you're really rolling good, your breakouts the next game are very good, and then something else goes. But you have to be on top of it. So what happens a lot of times is you may be winning 7, 8 games in a row or 5 games in a row, but these things aren't adding up. And the good coaches fix them before you get on a huge losing streak. So it's easy to say, oh, we're winning every game. And a lot of times it probably throws you off when you listen in the media and a guy will say, well, we're not playing good. Well, he knows that 3 of these things are off kilter, but they're finding ways to win. Their goalie's outplaying the other team. They're getting lucky. The good coaches will fix them before you lose 5 the other way. So to me, these things right here, and there could be different checklists for you at a younger age. Are the kids playing enough? Are the kids playing even? By that, I mean, is ice time. Is it within a minute or so? Are they having fun? Are they treating their teammates good? That could be your checklist. But as you get more competitive and you want to win more games, this is something that I would do. And then you develop a practice plan that goes with it. So you're not just making a practice 2 weeks from now, for 2 weeks from now, and then, three of these things went wrong, you're not fixing them. If you want to show your players you're in control and you know what you're doing, then you will show them clips to match these, and then you will incorporate these into your practice. And you will get a good response from your players, because your players will know that you know what you're doing. And not only that, if your team is listening to the way you want them to play and you get ahead of all this stuff, you're going to chip away and get more points by the end of the year. And eventually, to me, that's how you end up scratching and clawing and getting a team that isn't ready to be in the playoffs, possibly in the playoffs a year or 2 earlier, like we want to do in Ottawa, because we're going to scratch and claw and scrape away at some of these points. Go to the next one, Karen. Now this is huge for you coaches here. And the NHL now has skills coaches, development coaches, and they do a really good job in the American Hockey League, the best developmental league in the world. And that's where the players, and a lot of them don't understand. They come from junior and they think they should play right away. And they don't realize that going down and working on these things will keep them in the league for a long time. If you get to the NHL too soon, one thing about the NHL is it will show you what you can't do before it shows you what you can do. So it doesn't matter how good you are, you're going to get there and you're going to find out, oh boy, I can't do this in the NHL. I'm not as good as Ovechkin. I'm not as good as this guy. And it can take your confidence quickly. So skill development is imperative for us at a younger and at an early stage in these kids' career. Is that, down in Belleville, they do an outstanding job from what I've seen in my 1 year here of really taking care of that element of development. Now for the younger age, I would say you guys should start your practice with skill development every day, whether it's a fun drill or not, or a drill in the middle and a drill at the end. Your job as coaches is not so much to win at a younger age. Your job is to make sure they're enjoying hockey. They're better people when they leave. Their mental health is better. And you can do that by allowing them to have fun. And by fun, I mean, let them work on their skills. Let them work on things that maybe they don't get a chance to in game. I wouldn't dwell so much on all the defensive details for 8, 9, 10, 11, 12-year-olds. I would work on stick handling, puck control, shooting, small area games, fun stuff for the kids. There's nothing wrong with putting close nets together and having fun and letting them play a game. The kids love to play, but you'll try things in 3-on-3 with close nets that you'll never be able to try in a game. You might be able to try it 30 times in that game, where in a regular game, you might only get the puck, especially a player that's not great yet and hasn't developed its skills. That player might only have the puck for 10 seconds in a game on his stick. So your job as coaches is to make sure they're getting that skill development in practice and not just lining them up and skating them. You can get them in shape by doing skills and with pucks, and you push yourselves to do a better job of coming up with drills that, you know, that incorporate these skills and not just, like I said, lining them up and skating them back and forth. And then integrating skill development into your practice setting. Make competitive drills with skill where they've got to make plays. They've got to go against people. They've got to puck protect. They've got to work on their pass. They got to make a pass and come up with drills that allow them to get better, so that there's a clear visual that by the end of the year, these players are getting better. And your drills have made them do that. There's nothing more satisfying as a coach than to watch somebody get better because of something that you've helped them with. And so many young coaches and minor hockey coaches get fixated on the wins and the losses, where realistically, if you take care of communication, treating them well, skill development, and fun, you're going to win more games than the guy who doesn't do these things, probably regardless. Go to the next one. Okay, now accountability. What are your hard rules? Well, a lot of times you make too many rules. So, we have a rule for this and a rule for that and a rule for this. Well, what happens so many times, in my opinion, is, there's so much gray when it comes to it. A kid's late for practice. Well, okay, if you want them there an hour before practice, is the reason you have them there an hour before practice because they're going to stretch and do all these things, or you just heard someone say, hey, be there an hour before practice? Because if they're just going to sit there and screw around, you're going to end up getting mad at them anyways. If they're there for a real reason, I get it, stretch, workout, whatever you're doing. But what happens if one of those kids is late because, their mother had to work or their father had to work and couldn't get them there? So there's some gray area there. So I wouldn't make a ton of those rules, but I would have your hard rules. And by that, I mean, at that age, there's absolutely no bullying. And if you break that rule, you're sitting this amount of games, or you will be reported, or whatever the case may be. Now, if you take bad penalties or, verbal penalties to the referee, you're automatically sitting 10 minutes. Next time's 20 minutes, third time's a game. If you take selfish penalties, long shifts, those kind of things, and I wouldn't have a ton of them, but you need them to know what those hard rules are. And, whether I wouldn't make 10 or 20 of them, I'd have 3 of them, whatever that is that you decide, but be hard on them, because then, you can, as things come, you can maneuver your way through those things, and you don't end up with a ton of fighting, amongst the parents at your age. Now, at our level, guys, I mean, they're not going to be late. If they are, that's a major issue. These guys are professionals, but my hard rules: shift length, being a good teammate, practicing hard, being prepared, doing these things. These are hard rules for me. If you don't do these, you don't play for me. You either play less or you sit out. It has to be team first. It has to be the way we want to play. If you want to play outside of our structure, I'll take you out of the lineup. But my hard rules, and it's really simple: work hard every single day. Do not cheat the game. If you work hard, I'll leave you alone. If you do not, you will not play. And that's a hard rule in our team. And people know. So if you see a guy sit out for the Ottawa Senators, unless he's a young guy and, he might be in and out of the lineup, you see an older guy sit out, chances are he's not working hard enough. If you work hard, I can let you play yourself out of slumps. But if you're going to cheat your teammates, and I've been about this my whole career, and it's accountability, but I let them know that I'll never let you down. I will always know who's working hard and who doesn't. It's my job to know, and if you're not, you don't get to play. So, but again, at your age, they become a little more ticky-tack rules, but I'd have less is more. Team building, it's imperative that they know. To me, as you get older, players always think that, especially in junior hockey, it's about partying. It's about getting out together on the town. As you get older in the NHL, the good teams love being at the arena. They love being together. And when you got a good team, they could sit there, play ping pong all day. They just love to compete together. at a young age, do things away from hockey, especially that allows the players that aren't the best to be good at something or to be in the mix. The best player, the best few players on the team, especially in minor hockey, go to the arena feeling good every day. They know they're the best. They don't have too many bad days, but the people in the lower end of that, of the team go there every day and they struggle to be accepted. Well, can you create things that they can do that allow them to feel that they're on even par or better than the people who are the best hockey players? So, whether it's baseball or soccer or maybe it's a board game or something else that allows these people the opportunity to also be the best at something. And it could be anything. It could be, I know I went to the Pee Wee tournament in Quebec, and we did the downhill skiing. It wasn't skiing, but it was like in a tube or what have you. Like, everyone felt a part of it. Everyone had fun. They forgot about hockey for a bit. It allows you to be human again, and then you come back and recharge. So I would challenge you as coaches at minor hockey to come up with team building activities that are non-hockey related, that allow the lower end players to build some confidence from those things and get a bit of street credit or what have you from the good players, and allow them to gain some strength. Can you go to the next, or is that it? One more. Oh, okay. Adaptability. And what I mean by this on adaptability is more for my stage of coaching. But I have to be able to adapt. If I'm every day saying the same thing about defense and this and that and the other thing, and I know that I'm losing my team a little bit because maybe what I'm asking for my guys, they're not good enough, or I'm asking them to play a style maybe that they are incapable of playing. So, for you, maybe at the end of the day, for younger kids, are you going to adapt to, the way your team plays? So many coaches get stuck with, I'm doing it this way, it's my way, and I'm not changing. Well, that's not realistic. Talk to your players, find out if your way's working. You don't have to listen 100%, but you got to it has to be some give and take. And I think the good coaches can adapt. I think they can adapt quickly. I think they can find a way to make the players feel important and possibly change a few systems throughout the year. If you find something's not working, change up the system on a power play, but I feel the best coaches can adapt, and the NHL coaches adapt on the fly. When you get to the point where you're an NHL head coach, you've been in big games before, you've won playoff series and what have you to get here. You can adapt in one TV timeout, and your team's good enough to adapt. You've played different systems, and you can make a switch quickly from a 1-2-2 in the neutral zone to a 2-1-2. You can switch the same from a forecheck. You can switch what you're doing on faceoffs. You can switch your breakout on the special teams. At a younger age, it's a little different, but I would challenge you to move some things and change some things around and make yourself more adaptable. Is there more there, Kinger? Is that it? Okay, so I think yeah. So I think now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open it up for questions. I didn't want to just continue to ramble on, but I want to open it up for questions because I've covered a lot of topics. It's a little bit more difficult in Zoom than it is to stand there live and have slides and be able to ask questions as I was going through them. But I would welcome you to ask any question, and hopefully I can answer it for you.
Thanks very much, DJ. That was insightful. That was very, very interesting. We've got some questions that have come in through the chat.
Yep.
What I'm going to do, I'm going to take the same approach as I've done for the last couple of weeks, guys. I'm just going to call out to the people who've submitted them and just have you unmute and talk to DJ directly and ask him your question. So Zach, I'm going to start with you. If you want to unmute your mic and ask DJ your question. Maybe not. Okay, we'll jump over to...
Sorry, are you guys able to hear me?
Oh, sorry, yeah, there we are. Yep.
Sorry, my mic wasn't plugged in. I thought you were going to read it out like you've done previously. Yeah, DJ, that was awesome. I live with two current European pro hockey players, so I was excited all day, and I was telling them that you were going to come on today and give this webinar. And one of them got me thinking, and I'm going to ask you now. At the higher levels, what are your thoughts on days off? When can you or can't you give them, and can you use them as rewards?
I think you can use them as rewards, but it's imperative. If you know, there's so much information now about physical fitness. And I've always been big on days off, minimum of 1 a week in junior. I think the NHL, with as much flying, it's probably more like 2. But more than anything, it's mental. You certainly need a physical break once a week, but especially if you're a demanding coach, just seeing me every day puts stress on players, and I'm well aware of that. Those players need 1 full day where they do not see me at all, and they're allowed to turn their brain off from hockey. And I feel you get more from your players when they come back recharged. And you can use, depending on your team plays, you can use it as punishment or rewards. But you want to, especially at our level, you want to keep it that you're using them to refresh them and for physical repair more than rewards, because you're playing 82 games. It's hard to hold that carrot all the time over their head. It has to become a business where you're just turning it over one after another. But they need to know that you're smart enough to know when they're out of gas and when they need a day off. And it is a little bit tricky sometimes, but I'm a 1 to 2 day a week minimum.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep.
Awesome. Thanks. Sean O'Connor, hopefully you're still on the line. You want to unmute and chat with DJ.
Hey, DJ, thanks for the presentation tonight.
No problem.
You talked a lot about culture with the Ottawa Senators. I'm just wondering, what are some things that you and your coaches do kind of on a daily basis, to reinforce your culture or to sort of instill your culture? Do you have any, props or stuff in the room that you use for, whatever stuff like that?
What I didn't in year 1, I put nothing up on the wall. I'll put a little bit up this year. I'm very clear. We're work ethic based, and the culture changes when people try and outwork each other every day. And eventually what we're setting there is that eventually Tkachuk and Shabbat and the younger players will hold them accountable, and I won't have to. One of the biggest things that I do, and I want my coaching staff to do, is to be around the dressing room a little more. I treat myself essentially like I'm the captain of the team for the first couple of years. I make myself very personable, on the off day, so that I can talk to players about anything. But at the end of the day, they know that I have there's no gray. It's 100% work-based. Our culture is, and we're well known now. I think the league knows the Ottawa Senators play hard. We're tough. And we're going to practice and do the exact same things. I had heard some rumors that they didn't practice overly hard. And, that's one thing that I will not stand for. And the players now enjoy it. They know that it's a 40 to 45-minute practice at max. Between games, it might be a little shorter. Go fast, go hard, allow you to work on your skills after. And I think they're really receptive to it. And I think slowly but surely the culture is changing. And Tkachuk and Shabbat, these guys are learning what the NHL is about and what they'll stand for and not stand for. And I think, when you look at a team like the Boston Bruins that has Chara and Bergeron that have been doing this for so long, their culture is the exact same. They're pros on and off the ice, and we want to do the same. We're a work in progress, but we're getting better.
Awesome. Thanks.
No problem.
Tony C., you're up.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks, DJ. I really appreciate your time tonight. Just a question I have with sort of your comments on fun drills, philosophy that I sort of bought into and agree with you. Are you seeing a sort of a shift or a trend with what junior players and pro players are liking or akin to as fun drills to do? Us at the minor league level, youth hockey level, we're coaching for an hour and a half, and your point is right on that we can lose them. So, players at 12 years old think anything's fun, but is there a trend to what junior players, semi-pro players, and pro players are wanting to do for 5-10 minutes of fun that you can just sit back and smile?
Yeah, you know what? They love 2-on-1 drills. They love scoring drills. Things where they're allowed to try things stress-free, I guess. When you're running a D-zone coverage drill or a 1-on-1 drill, the coach is yelling, move your feet. And, and by fun, you're allowing them to be creative and enjoy it. Maybe a 8-on-8 relay race where they got to score or go until the goalie doesn't save it, or 3-on-3. I really like to play 3-on-3 with the side nets inside the zone. Where you start 1-on-1, then 2-on-2, then 3-on-3, then build your way back down, especially at a young age. And I think what happens is you get a lot of parents that get a bit angry at the coach for whatever particular reason. Maybe their son or daughter isn't playing as much, and they get on the glass at those practices and, they're not doing enough structure. You're not going to keep them all happy. But one thing is if you give the players enough fun drills, they're going to get better at their skills naturally. But I would say just drills where they get to compete against each other, with the coach isn't yelling and screaming. Make it a fun contest. Losing team has to skate a half lap or whatever it is. But the NHL players seem to really like, those kind of competition drills where it's one team against another team, 3-on-3, things like that, where there's a clear winner and they can joke around about, who wins and who loses.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Great. Question here from Coach Chris. He doesn't have a mic, so he's asked me to fire it out to you. You had talked about information coaches have that you may not necessarily share with players. He's curious as to what goes into deciding what information to share with what players and when to share it.
I think what I mean by that is the player evaluations. So if your player evaluations, 4 coaches say, have a player evaluation sheet, and, one player is rated a 4 and another player is rated a 2 at the end of that segment, you certainly don't want that information getting out to all the players so that they can go back and tell their parents and say, hey, so I saw so-and-so was a 2 and the other guy was a 3.5. And that's how it gets moving around the stands. And that's how, parents start to get a little more involved. At that age, at you guys' age, for a lot of the young kids, it would be stats. I wouldn't release any stats to anybody. There's no reason why no one's going to care who scored. I mean, if you got a kid on your team who's going to score 300 goals or something like that, Gretzky-esque, yeah, you're going to keep those numbers. But no one cares. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter who scored all the goals and assists. And so many parents put so much time into it. If they want to keep stats, or I guess they really want to know, but is it helping anyone to show that, someone's got 60 points and another guy's got 4? It's not really. It's the parents of the kid who has 60 always wants to know, but the kid who has 4, doesn't really want to know those numbers. So what I was talking about was the evaluation part of it and you can use that evaluation to personally with the child or the child and his parent, but I wouldn't release that to anyone but them. And at the end of the day, our job is to make our players play better and feel better about themselves. So if you're going to give them information that's not going to do that, I wouldn't give it to them.
Gotcha. Great. Carl Robillard.
Thanks, Brian. DJ, thank you very much. That was awesome. Question for you. Today's player, obviously we all understand the youth of today is a little bit different, obviously, than when we grew up and played. How important do you feel it is for players to have a consistent message from different voices? As head coach, understanding that, as you said earlier, you may be losing the group, the messaging may be getting confused. So to have a consistent strategic message, but coming from the head coach, the assistant coach, the development coach, team leaders, to make sure that guys buy in.
Yeah, no, it's imperative. That's why it's imperative to have coaches that are on the same page. I think a lot of times what happens, especially in minor hockey, you get a bit of jealousy. Sometimes one guy wanted to be the head coach, wasn't named the head coach. One guy's an assistant coach, but doesn't agree with the head coach. And then you get in a situation where you hurt the kids and you hurt the the player because they're getting different messaging. So if you have a staff, and that's why it's imperative at the pro level that guys pick their own staff, because they end up with a staff that's, loyal and the messaging is the same. And then the player knows it's coming from a good place. And it's not punishment why we're saying certain things to you. Maybe an assistant coach explains it, better than the head coach explains. and that sometimes happens. I have an assistant coach that, I know when I was in Toronto, I had a really good relationship with a couple of players where, Babs would sometimes be like, you know what, it's better if you talk to him, and we'd get better results from it. So, I think at the younger age, just make sure that the message is the same, and it doesn't matter who it's coming from. At the end of the day, the player's mental health and how they feel after that meeting. If you can make them feel better, doesn't matter who is that's talking to them. When they leave that meeting, if they can feel better about themselves that night, it's going to make them play better.
Great. Another question here on the chat. How do you get players to buy in if they aren't able to play the style they've played in previous years, or they're not able to play your style or the coach's style? So, a skilled player who now is playing for a coach who's a grinder, defense-oriented kind of guy, or vice versa.
Well, what happens in that situation for me is, I've had plenty of players that can't play that bangs, game. But what I ask for them is, I'm well aware who can bang and who can crash and who can't. And that kind of comes into the adaptability. But I also need players that can score goals, and I need players that are highly skilled as well. But they don't have to, run in on the forecheck and run people over. But I also need them possibly, I would tell the guy, you got to make them stop their feet. You don't have to run someone over, but you have to make them stop their feet. You have to back check. You have to block shots. It doesn't matter how much skill you have. And there's a lot of excuses out there from good players and good players' parents. A lot of time the coach wants them to do this. Things you can do is work hard. If you work hard, I can live with the fact that you're not a big banging guy and you're not going to hit people. That's fine. But you can certainly back check. You can change hard. You can take quick shifts. You can block shots. Skilled players can all do those things. And sometimes we let them off the hook saying, oh, he's a skilled guy. He doesn't have to do. No, that's not how it works. If you watch teams that win the Stanley Cup, the best players, and even every player now almost in the NHL, they were the best player on their team at some point. And they learned to do these things. So I'm not so much as I am the banging and the crashing. I'm work-based. And no matter what kind of player you are, you can work and you can be a good teammate. So I think if I guess to answer your question is, not everyone's going to bang and crash. Not everyone's going to be a skilled player, but everyone can work hard. And if you hold them to a work hard accountability, it makes it easy.
Makes it easy. Great stuff. Last question. When you were talking about practice planning and building in, your staple drills, and then looking at, running a couple of drills on what failed or went wrong in the previous game, where would you say that approach fits in the minor hockey continuum? Where or when does a coach start to be able to consider doing that with their practice, instead of not worrying about what went wrong in the game, but just keeping them on a development path and on a curriculum, so to speak?
I would say, I'm going to go with, and don't hold me to it that I know all these answers here, but I'm going to say in Bantam hockey, you've got to start to correct some of those mistakes, because part of your job as a coach when you get to Bantam is not only skill development in that, is to prepare your player to possibly be drafted or possibly be on a team that allows him to get a scholarship. And part of that is systems and some structure. And it doesn't have to be a ton. It might only be one thing at Bantam hockey. It might be two in midget. And by the time you get to junior, now it becomes, 3 things or 4 things that, but, at Bantam hockey, I think one of them is fine. Guys, we're giving up too many goals because we're giving up all these odd man rushes. So we're going to work on an odd man rush drill today. That's pretty simple. Where midget hockey is, our defensive zone coverage is no good and our forecheck was no good. So we're doing those 2 things today, but we're still going to do the skill drills and these other things. For junior hockey, I would narrow it might be 3. You know what I mean? But I still think, at Pee Wee and Adam and Novice, I would keep it to fun, exciting, have the puck, play all those things. I wouldn't put a ton of structure in.
Gotcha. Great. Well, that's all the questions that we have, DJ. On behalf of HEO, myself and JR, I can't thank you and Michael enough for giving your time this evening. It was a pleasure to have you attend our webinar series. JR, I see you've unmuted. Do you want to chime in and add anything, sir?
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys. Mike, DJ, Pierre, that was great. I really appreciate you guys coming in on a Wednesday night and taking time to talk to our coaches. We had some really good webinars throughout our 14 weeks here, and to end it on this one for now, that was great. We are going to take a little bit of a break in terms of our webinars after this one, but we will be back once we have a lineup throughout the season when the season starts again. But again, I appreciate you taking the time today. That was really fantastic.
You know what? No problem at all. I think part of it is, you know, if some of you are lucky enough to be able to coach for a living, I think it's imperative that you give back and help people when you can. And you know, I invite you all to come out and watch as many Ottawa Senators practices as possible when we allow the fans to come in. I think just to see the pace that the players do it at and the skill set and the way an NHL practice is run could probably really help you. So if there's a way we can do that through HEO this year, I'd be certainly glad to do that.
Awesome. Good to hear.
Fabulous.
Thank you very much.
Fabulous stuff. Jared, did I hear you say Pierre joined us?
He was on the call. I'm not sure if he's here anymore, but he said he was jumping in on the call today.
He was
so.
jumping in. So if we've missed you, sorry, Pierre. Thank you for being here. To all the coaches for the last 14 weeks, thank you very much for your continued support and attendance. We've been thrilled to put them on, and we couldn't be more happy with the response we've gotten and the turnouts we've had. As JR said, we're going to take a little break, catch our wind, reset our compass, and then talk about putting plans into start again in the fall. With hockey starting a little bit again now, it's giving us something to focus on, to be back in the rinks and watching some hockey on television. So we look forward to seeing you all back when we revitalize the program sometime early in the fall. Thank you again to DJ, Michael, and Pierre. And as always, everybody, stay safe and stay healthy. Good luck with your upcoming seasons, and we'll all talk again real soon.
Thank you. Have a good day, boys.
Thanks,
Thanks
DJ.
a lot.
No problem.